And so this is one of those days where I don't have somebody to introduce me. So here I am to introduce myself. My name is David Carr, and for a number of years now, I've been working on a project to bring the value of WordPress into the Toastmasters community so that you can have much richer and deeper and more functional club websites and district websites too. We have some people here from District 62, where I support them on running their district websites, but we're also doing outreach to the clubs to make sure that they can see the value. So really what I offer through the Toastmost service are a set of powerful digital marketing tools and a flexible modern design that you're not going to get with Free Toast Host. I don't want to talk down Free Toast Host too much. It was put together originally by volunteers and then sponsored by Toastmasters International. It's still supported by a lot of good volunteer effort, but it looks a little dated. And there are a lot of limits on what you can do within that framework. Also, you're going to get access to a flexible modern design, and modern means things like being mobile friendly, reformatting to fit on a phone screen as opposed to a computer screen. And along the way, you get access to not just marketing tools, but some digital business processes like online application forms that are quicker and easier for the prospective member to fill out, registration for events. We'll talk about those things as we go through. So the original site was my home club website, where I looked at Free Toast Host and I said, do we have to use this thing? And it turned out we didn't. So what we have now is a big website that has a lot of content on the homepage, welcoming people, dramatizing the fact that we're meeting in a hybrid format, and then pointing to all these different blog posts that include video replays of past workshops we've held. So showing the richness of why you might want to be a member of that club. And then we do also have the functional side too, where we can go in and we can take a role. And this is pretty standard stuff. You're going to take a role, you're going to choose your level, your project, put in the title and the details, and it will pick up from the specific project what the time requirements are. There's a lot of work that has gone into just that stuff, having a catalog of all these projects and their timing without necessarily having a lot of explicit support from Toastmasters International. And so we can sign ourselves up to be a speaker. We can also assign other people. There's a mode for suggesting a role to another member that you can take advantage of. Let's see. Just a moment. Oh. All right. Okay. So the basic thing that you're getting access to definitely in terms of the marketing aspect, is you're getting basically a web-based word processor, a web-based design tool that you can use to create and edit your homepage and also blog posts. So within that, you can open up a new blog post, you can put in a title, you can just start typing, but then you can add multimedia. You can certainly add an image, but even if I just want to add an image, it gives me the choice of, do I want to add a basic image or an image gallery or a number of other treatments of an image that can make it stand out on the page. We can highlight any bit of text and put in a link to another resource. That's certainly true. And then video is actually as easy as you copy and paste a YouTube link into the page, and it's smart enough, the software is smart enough to include the YouTube player in that spot on your website. And beyond just having a nice homepage, we can also branch out and have blog posts that are devoted to announcing specific events. Somebody just won a contest. You can blow that out in its own blog post, and then you can take that and cross-post it to social media. And there's some things you can do to optimize how that will appear on social media. And a bunch of you are here because you saw a post on social media. You know, I go out and do that kind of promotion fairly aggressively because it's free and it's a way of reaching people in the community who don't necessarily know me personally. I can post in different Facebook groups, and some of you are probably here because of you've seen one of those posts. But doing it right, and the Toastmasters International website actually does not do that very well at all. You'll get a very generic. I've written articles for Toastmasters magazine, and if I try and post them to Facebook, I get a very generic little preview image. It's just the Toastmasters logo. No matter what article you post, it's the Toastmasters logo. So if you're trying to distinguish yourself on the web and social media, there are better tools available, and I'm trying to make them available to you. You have a bunch of design choices right up front, so you can sort of browse through these things when you're creating a website on the toastmost.org service. You can choose the one that looks close to what you might want. And then within each of these themes, there are more options, more things you can change. And the new one for 2023 actually gives you an unprecedented number of things you can change. Don't hurt yourself playing with the power tools, but the tools are there, and some of that stuff is pretty cool. And by mobile friendly, I do mean that it reformats to fit on a phone screen. I mean, it's not going to look the same on a phone screen, but it can still look pretty good on a phone screen. And if you send out the email from your website trying to encourage people to sign up for the next meeting, it goes out with all these little one-click sign-up links that invite people to click once and be signed up for that role without necessarily having to remember their password or be able to try and type that in on their phone. We're trying to make it as easy as possible for people to do the right thing, support the club, take on those roles as needed. Actually, I'm just noticing that that's showing up where it shouldn't. All right, anyway, so mobile friendly is a good thing. I've done a lot of work recently on this email newsletter tool. Some of you might have gotten the email promoting this event. So this is using the same editor that you use for a web page or a blog post to format your email, and then you can send it out to a list of people, whether it's the list of members of your club or a bigger list you're trying to build of guests and potential members. And then it's not just marketing, it is also what I call digital business processes. The idea that you can fill out an application on the website without downloading a PDF and then having to re-upload it or send it off someplace, which I think is pretty awkward. Something very similar is with we have digital evaluation forms through the website. When we sign people up, we encourage them to click an RSVP now button on the homepage. This is the online presenters website. And then it gives them a little form that asks them for some more information. So you can customize this to determine what information you need to learn. So for an advanced club, you want to know how much experience they already have and whether they are likely to qualify as members. So you're giving a lead, or even a qualified lead, marketers would call it, to your VP of membership so that they can follow up with that person. So if they signed up and they didn't show up, we can send them a follow-up message. And then this is the evaluation tool. The exact same prompts that would appear on one of those Pathways PDF evaluation forms. And it gets emailed off to the member. It also gets archived on the website so I can go back and look at my old evaluation forms. So that's useful. We're trying to make this all more useful to the members as well as being more useful as a promotional tool. So that's the song and dance. Powerful digital marketing tools, flexible modern design, and digital business processes along the way. And no, there is a cost to it, to being supported in this format. So I need clubs who find this to be useful, to support it, to help pay the bills, because it does cost me some money to run all the web server resources. But we give you we give you 3 months free to try it. The 3 months free trial, that's supposed to be time in which you can invite in a few members, maybe experiment with running a meeting in this format, and then from there, figure out whether it makes sense for your club. Hopefully you're going to decide yes, and then you can carry forward with it from that point. Now, I do get some pushback on this, and one of the things I've heard from my friends at District 62 who've been trying to support this project is that they get pushback from people saying, well, Free Toastmasters is free. Why wouldn't we just use that? And I asked Lonnie Huff to come here and maybe give you a little bit more of, well, I'm asking for a testimonial. I'm asking for praise. Please praise me, Lonnie, just a little bit, and maybe help answer that question of why this might be worthwhile, why $50 isn't this $50 a year for a club isn't necessarily unrealistic.
Thanks, David. Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to speak about that. So my background is I am a software developer, and I have some incidental WordPress experience. When I first stumbled across my corporate club, I went to their website and was kind of sad. It's like, oh, I definitely want to join this club. They seem great. People are really nice, but this website isn't going to work for me. The first thing I'm going to want to do is volunteer to come up with something new and better. Well, when I mentioned it to our Vice President Education, she made it clear that it was really important that we use Free Toast because it provided us the meeting agendas and the signups and all those Toastmastery tools like the members list. And it's like, okay, let me see what I can do. And I thought what I was going to have to do was engineer all of that stuff myself from scratch, which maybe I could have done, but it would have probably taken a year or more. And it wouldn't have been as great and fully featured as what I discovered when I went searching for this. I found David's tool, RSVP Maker for Toastmasters. All of that stuff was already built. So here I have WordPress, which I was already experienced with, and it supplies all of those tools like users and logins and private posts, all the stuff I was already used to with the images and the social media and the sharing. And he added all the Toastmasters tools to it. So I was able to, within just maybe 3 to 4 hours from scratch, get a brand new website up and running for my club and was able to share that with them. I was so excited. I actually gave a speech on this, and if anyone knows me, I don't give many speeches, but I gave a speech on this, sharing all these new features with them. And that was 4 years ago. Since that time, David has continued to innovate and add new features and just make it better and better for my members. I am so grateful that this tool exists. It's made a huge difference for my club. In fact, when I joined a second club, as I'm sure many of you here are members of more than one club, I immediately told them, hey, thank you for welcoming me to your club, and how would you like a new website? And of course, they were very excited because they were also disenchanted with Free Toast Host. I think one of my favorite things about RSVP Maker is, as David mentioned, those digital applications. As you might know, if you've ever been in the treasurer role, the VPM role, we're required to maintain those applications that we receive from new members. Toastmasters says that you have to agree to keep that on file. And of course, with Toastmasters, there's a lot of turnover. So you might have a folder here, a folder there. One treasurer has some of them. I know I have a stack of them in my desk somewhere from back when we were all paper, but this keeps it all online for you. It completely counts. Toastmasters considers that a binding document. So that takes care of that for you. My members love the digital evaluations, how easy it is to not have to email a PDF to somebody and have them fill it out and then email it back. The digital tool online is better. The PDFs, as you might know, you're limited in how much you can type. And Toastmasters have a lot to say, generally speaking. So the fact that I can type literally as much as I want to in terms of those 3 boxes up at the top where I give the feedback is just fabulous. I am really in love with the tool. It's great. It's made a big difference for my clubs. And I can tell you as a professional web developer that $50 a year is pocket change. I pay $150 a year for my web hosting. So the idea that I can get this tool for $50 a year is great for me.
All right. Thank you, Lonnie. Appreciate the propaganda help. If you go to toastmost.org, this is where you would set up one of these websites. And so I'm going to take you through some examples of that, of how you would set up a website in this format. Now, if you're brand new, you're going to come in here and you're going to put in your email address, and then
David, you should share your screen so it's full screen.
Let's see.
You're just a little stamp in the corner of the gallery.
That's right. Let me do the pinning trick because I'm showing stuff in my background here. Okay. All right. So yeah, if you were brand new, you would come in, you would put in your email, your first name, your last name, and your name of the club. Because I already have a login, I'll log in as me to go through this process. So, the only difference is that if you're brand new, it's going to give you a default password, which you're going to have to copy and paste or store in some way so that you can get back into your website the next time you want to get there. So it asks us whether we're going to create a club website and a district website. So I would like to get some more districts to take advantage of this. And we're going to call this the June 21st test site. And it will give me an address. It'll assign me an address as whatever.toastmost.org by default. Now you can actually register your own web domain. If you want to go to GoDaddy and spend a little bit of money, you may be able to get your clubname.com. But for starters, at least, it's going to be at .toastmost.org. And it gives me sort of a default based on the name of the club that I provided. I can change that if I want. I do recommend keeping this short. So like Online Presenters is just op.toastmost.org. And that helps out in other ways because we also use the what's called the subdomain, the part before the .toastmost.org. We also use that as part of our email address too. So we have a bunch of email tools where I can send a message to op@toastmost.org and it will go to all the other club members. So it does ask us to put in our district, our club number. I mean, if you don't know this, it doesn't really, I mean, I'm trying to keep track of where people are coming from. So we'll say that this is a club in San Francisco that meets every Wednesday at 7 p.m. So we're trying, and it's going to be on Los Angeles time, Pacific time. We're going to use the default theme that is selected here, but we could choose any of these other starter designs. Theme is just WordPress jargon for a set of templates that make up a design that are designed to go together. And it'll say website created. Please wait while we get things set up. So there are some things that need to go on in the background. So that's just me sort of programmatically stalling until things are ready. So it says, go to this, follow this link to your new website and look for the club website setup wizard when you get there. So I'll do that. And so here is my note that says, hello, webmaster. To get started, please visit that wizard. We do have a little bit of text that's been added up top. It picked up that we meet every Wednesday at 7 p.m. PDT. So that's already set up here. If I go to the club website wizard, here I've tried to simplify the process of making those first few decisions about particularly how your agenda is set up. So how long do you allow at the beginning? Are these roles that you have in your club? Like not everybody has a body language monitor or a humorist. So maybe you don't have a body language monitor, so we take that out. And we have a humorist, but that person is called the joke master. And this will show up on the initial boilerplate agenda as roles that the Toastmaster introduces at the beginning of the meeting. How many speakers and evaluators do we have at a typical meeting? So the default is 3. You can change that to whatever you want. Do we do table topics? Yeah, we do that after speakers and before evaluators. You give the evaluators some time to think. And there are some other defaults here for just how that meeting might be structured, how much time is allowed for different activities. So you should be able to just go through here, read the prompts, and get an idea of what it is we want to set up. I'm going to say next. And it's going to go ahead and set up a bunch of meeting events for me according to that setup. And there's an option to invite in some other users. So if you want to ask a couple of other officers to join you in testing the site, you could do that at this point. There's also an option to add some test users. So we're going to do that just so we have some people to interact with, even if they're fictional people. And then from this screen, it gives you some pointers on where you might go next to do the next basic things that you would want to do with your website. One of the first you might want to do is edit your homepage. So make this start to say what it is that's so special about your club. So this is what the homepage as we have it so far looks like in the editor, where we have that first sentence about the club. Obviously, you want to say something more about what it is that makes you so fabulous. We have the visit as a guest widget that's going to show the next few meetings with an RSVP now invitation. But we might want to add an image right up top. And so we can go to image. Let's see. I have to remind myself not to use all the shortcuts. There's this thing where you can type the // key, and it will give you a menu of things you can insert. There's also a little plus button. So every time I introduce a blank line, if I added a blank line, it would give me a little plus button saying, what do you want to add? So I can go here also, and I can go to image. Or, I don't know, maybe this is too many choices. Or there's one in the upper left-hand corner where I can click, and again, I can do image, and it actually gives me maybe a little bit more information about the kinds of things that I could insert. But let's just do a basic image. So it asked me if I have something in my media library, in other words, things that I've uploaded previously that I want to use, or if I'm going to upload something from my computer. If I'm going to upload something from my computer, might recognize this from the slideshow I was just running. This was the screenshot of an email. So it's not really an appropriate image, but we can upload and place something fairly quickly. One big advantage is that WordPress takes care of some of the resizing of these images automatically. Because I can't tell you how many Toastmasters websites I've looked at. And I've actually looked at a lot of them, including the free Toast sites. And there are a lot that have a picture on the homepage where everybody's face is squished because somebody resized the image and was not careful to make sure that they resized it proportionally. And frankly, it's an easy mistake to make, but it's a nice thing when the software helps you do some of those things. So right in the right-hand sidebar, there are some options to change this from a full-size image to a medium-size image to a little thumbnail, or I could actually put in the specific dimensions that I want for this image. There's a place to add a caption. So this is email demo. So the caption would move around with that image. And one of the basic things that you might want to do is you decide you put this in the wrong spot in the page. So there's these little up down buttons that I can use to move this up and down on the page until I have it in the spot where I really want it. So that's fairly useful. There is some drag and drop too. I guess if you grab this little thing, you might be able to do drag and drop. You can decide whether it should be centered or aligned to the left or the right. And you could add a link to it. So sometimes you're putting in an image that represents an activity or something. I mean, there are actually buttons in this system too that you can add, but you can have this this image be a link to something else. And since I mentioned links, obviously this is a really basic thing that you want to be able to do on the web. If you highlight any word, you can mark it bold, you can mark it italic, or you can make it a link. So if we want to make it a link, we just put in whatever address we want it to link to, and that now becomes a link for our website. So that's just a little bit of getting started on the how to edit. Now there's a whole video course, and I'm going to send this out as part of the replay. You'll get links to a number of resources. One of them is a whole video course that I put together where there's a 20-minute lesson or so, 20-minute or so lesson on just the editing details. And there are several others that deal with the design aspects of the site. But let me switch from that to looking at more of the functional side, and we can come back to some of the design aspects in a minute. So the functional side of the website, as I say, you can come in as an individual and you can sign up for a role. If you realize you can't make it that week, you can remove yourself. And the people who run the website, the VP of Education, other folks will get some notifications of these changes so that they know what's going on. But the idea here is we're trying to bring the club together and get them actively signing up for roles. Sometimes that's easier said than done, but still the thought is there. If we want to add something to the section up top to say, our area director will be visiting. Please be on your best behavior. We have these elements that we can edit. And also, let's see, when I clicked that link to edit, I went from the sign up mode to the edit mode. here I can also assign other people to the different roles for the club. So if somebody calls me up on the phone, they didn't go to the website, but they let me know that they can take a role for this upcoming meeting. This is how I can plug them in. Also, it's kind of a more compact version of the screen. This assign screen, and I'm switching to between these with these buttons on the bottom. I hope you see that. But the assign view here just shows me the open roles, and so that I can quickly plug people into them. So I've used this at the end of meetings. I'll use this to help fill up my agenda for the next week. But the organize screen is probably one of the things that you most want to get familiar with if you're one of the people who's going to be running this site, organizing the agendas. Is we went through some steps in that setup wizard of making some decisions, but you might not like the way it looks once you see it. You may decide that there are other roles that ought to be added to the agenda, or other elements that you need to structure your agenda. And this is the screen where we can do that. And so if we decide that we want the grammarian introduced after the joke master, kind of like the way we were moving those images up and down. There are these up and down arrows. So I can move this one from one position to the next. I can also add a role that we didn't have in here. So I can pick one of these standard roles that is in the system, or I can say custom role. And in our club, we have a, oh, sorry. Need to keep that in focus for a second. So I need to put in the name of my custom role. So this is the eyebrow counter, eyebrow raise counter. So we're going to count the number of times people raise their eyebrows. And we can decide whether this person needs to have a certain amount of time on the agenda to introduce themselves or fill that role. And as I make changes here, one thing to notice is down at the bottom, it says, based on the allotted time, the meeting will end at 8:07. Well, maybe my meeting can run through 8:15. And so I realize I haven't given any time to the joke master. So I could put in 8 more minutes, and now our meeting ends at 8:15. One thing that you might do on a somewhat regular basis is you might have a meeting where you can only have 2 speakers. So maybe one person's giving a longer speech, and that won't leave time for 3 speakers. So we're going to go down to 2, but because one person is giving a longer speech, I will say that this is still 18. And I have an option here to sync, keep the number of speakers and evaluators in sync. So the number of evaluators has actually already changed to 2. And the amount of time for that is 6, as in 2 times 3 minutes. Now, obviously, you need to build some slack into your agenda as well, but there are ways of doing that. Now, the other thing you can do in addition to adding a role is you can add something like a 5-minute break. So we had 2 drop downs. One was select role, and this is select note or other block. So you can put in an agenda note, and that's typically something that stays the same from week to week, like 5-minute break. Or maybe you just call it the we take a break. So I put in an agenda note. I want to edit this. And this here, we take a break. And the time allowed for that will be 5 minutes. Maybe sometimes you can't afford 5 minutes and you'll adjust that. And so the idea is that this is meant to be kind of a planning tool for you as well. We all know that things don't always go exactly according to plan, but they're probably going to go a little bit closer to plan if you have a plan to get started with. Now, so far, I've been making all my changes to just this one weekly meeting. If I want to change the event template, in other words, I want to change the standard model of how my meetings work by default, I want to switch to the event template. And we'll know that we're in the event template when the date changes to October 22nd, 1924, which I read some places when the first Toastmasters meeting occurred. So obviously we know, we see that up top, and that's supposed to remind us that this is not a real individual date. However, we can go through and here and make our plan. And we can make whatever changes we need to make, such as we're back to the template, which had Joke Master, but didn't have time assigned to the Joke Master. So we can add that to the agenda. We can make whatever other changes we need to make. And then once we think we're pretty happy with that, there's this little link here that says create an update. So what this is going to do is it's going to allow us to edit all these different events that we've created so far. We're going to update them to match what we had set for that main event. And if there were dates coming off the end here that did not match up with any existing event, it would also give us the opportunity to add some new ones at the end of the agenda. So it will chug along for a moment and come back with something saying that these things have all been changed. And if I view this and I actually view the agenda for this, we should see that the Joke Master has been allotted 5 minutes. So he has from 7:10 to 7:15 to entertain us. Now this is, not a fleshed out agenda, but this was meant to be sort of the printable version. There's also an email version. So this is the one where you're sending it out to members and adding a note up top saying, we really need you to sign up for this next meeting. Nobody's signed up yet. We don't even have a Toastmaster of the day. So we're going to send it out with these one-click sign up links and encourage people to take part in our meeting. Let's see. I think it's probably way past time for me to take a break from monologuing. And first I'm going to ask for questions, and then I've actually asked Lonnie to give us a little bit of a tutorial as an actual web design professional, which I'm not. I'm working on it, but I'm going to ask Lonnie in a moment to give us a few thoughts about what it is you can do to make a club website stand out, or a district website. But first, I'm going to pause for questions. I haven't been seeing what's coming in the chat, but any questions right now? Sylvia.
Hi, David. I'm sorry, I was a little late getting here, but you may have answered this question. I have had special guest speakers come to speak at our club, and I could not find a way to add them on the agenda within the website. There was no category I could put them in. Do you have a suggestion for that?
Sure. Let me just show you. That's let's see. Okay, I'm gonna go back to sharing this screen. If I go over to edit, you have the option to choose from the list. Well, let's go down to a speaker slot, but choose from the list, or here we can type in the name of let's see, Abraham Lincoln is a popular guest at my
Need
clubs.
to share your screen again, David.
Well, let's see. I need to Spotlight for everyone. Okay.
I was stymied. I think maybe I just made a simple error, but it wouldn't let me select anybody that hadn't already been in our club roster. That was my
So
issue.
no, okay, so
Yeah.
this is where I'm showing. So
Okay.
here I am on the speaker. I can select people from the club roster, but there's also this thing that's here that says add guest. And so this is where we're gonna add.
I may need to
Barack Obama.
do we need to periodically upgrade, up like the software? Because I have an old one.
Well, I'm sorry, are you
yeah.
on are you on?
Yeah, we're on
Toastmost.org?
Toastmost. Yes, we are. Does it automatically upgrade or
Yeah,
does
it automatically upgrades. You should have the exact same software that I'm
okay.
showing you here.
Does
So-
it show up on the printed agenda once I put it in there? Because that's where I had the glitch. I think I didn't, where you print it out and you send it to members, it would not accept a name that wasn't on there.
So speaker is Abraham Lincoln and speaker 2 is Barack Obama as of right now. We
Well-
haven't assigned either of them a path or a project, but
It should be able to do it. Okay, thank
yeah.
you.
So however, maybe it's a good moment to say, if you try something and it doesn't work or it doesn't seem to work, reach out to me about it. Because there may well be something that is broken. And I think sometimes people, particularly people who don't consider themselves to be quote unquote good with computers, they blame themselves. They think they must be doing something wrong when actually it's the stupid software developer. And I speak only for myself, but I make mistakes sometimes, or I'm trying to fix one thing and I cause some kind of side effect that I didn't anticipate. So there is.
Do we reach you through the help screen on the website? There's a name there.
Yeah, I think my contact information is there, but you
Okay.
can also just write to David@toastmost.org.
Okay, thank you.
So that's a pretty good
That'll
way
work.
of reaching me.
Okay.
I maybe need a better way of allowing people to share support tickets explicitly or something. Let's see. Other questions right now before I ask Lonnie to speak? Okay,
Actually, I have a question.
sure.
What kind of data reporting is available? I know one of my members recently stumbled across here's a list of all the evaluations you've ever received and all the
Right.
evaluations you've ever given. What other kinds of reports are available?
Well, there are probably a number of things like that that could use to be better documented or in some cases actually approved. But let me show you. Let's see, I am logged in as me. So if I go to the online presenters website, so there's several menus. So I'm sorry, I should explain too. There's this concept in WordPress this is the front end of the site, which everybody sees, and this is the dashboard, which you have to be somebody who has a password to be able to see. So the dashboard is mostly for administrators, but there are a bunch of things in here that are for the members as well. Now, the member would see a simplified version of this agenda. They wouldn't be able to change any of the basic settings. They wouldn't be able to edit the homepage, but they can get to this screen that has things like my progress. And so this actually shows all of the things that I've done with this club. I can filter it down to be just the speeches. And there may be, because I do a lot of testing, there may be some test data in here. But the evaluation screen back here keeps track, and this was what I was mentioning, is we keep track of the evaluations that you've received. we also keep track of the evaluations that you've given so that you can go back and kind of retrace your steps on some of these things. So, and what else is in here that might be useful? Well, there's this thing called Pathways Project. I think this is probably a little bit half-baked, but the idea was to be able to see how many Pathways projects people had done that were recorded in the website. So this is not connected to Basecamp, but however, it might be a place where you can go to get a reminder of the speeches you've given that you haven't recorded in Basecamp yet. And so that's kind of where I see that becoming valuable. All right. Well, I am going to ask Lonnie to give us a few minutes of her fabulousness. I actually asked her to make it a 5 to 7 minute kind of deal. And so you will see some green, yellow, and red at some point.
Oh, thank you. Excellent. As David, as I have mentioned, I am a software developer. I started out in my club. My very first officer position was technically secretary because the vice president public relations role was already filled, but I quickly moved into that role, and that is the role in which I am happiest. I really enjoy the opportunity to publicize my club, to do lots of stuff with graphics. Now, what I'm showing you right now is a self-hosted WordPress website that is running the RSVP Maker software. So you can actually host a WordPress site yourself and install the RSVP Maker software and use it all on your own. However, that's going to require a little bit more technical know-how. So a lot of the things that I have done for our site are very customized, but what I'm going to talk about today are things that you can do for your own website anywhere. Honestly, I tried to come up with a list of techniques and things that I found that work really well for my club and hopefully could also benefit your clubs and your districts if that's where you're coming from. So what you're seeing right here is the website for Dungeons and Toast, which is a specialty interest Toastmasters club. That means that it is not a standard club with a broad group of people of different walks of life, but we're instead focused specifically on tabletop role-playing games, the most well-known of which is Dungeons and Dragons. So you're going to see a lot of fantasy stuff on here, things that are not going to necessarily be applicable to a corporate club or a more professional speakers club, but this is our site, and that's the one that I have to show you. One of the things that I've discovered initially about Free Toast Host is that almost all of those sites don't change. They never update their front page because, as it turns out, the club time doesn't change, the meeting time doesn't change, the location doesn't change that often. And you'll often have a photograph of the members from 5 years ago, all holding up some little ribbon or something like that, that doesn't necessarily mean anything to the average visitor who's not already a Toastmaster. And we should be aiming for our site to pull people in, not with the trappings of Toastmasters necessarily, although we do need to stay brand compliant, but with what we can offer them and the things that they can relate to. So one of the things that I have discovered is that with WordPress, we can use the blogging platform, which is what WordPress initially started as and has steadily grown in its features. We can use that blogging platform to create a dynamic, ever-changing, evergreen site that shows exactly what's going on with us. Now, that's a lot for one person to do. I checked my stats for the year. We're doing our end of the year celebration soon, so I ran some reports. I wrote 21 blog posts this year. The next person down wrote 7, next person down 5. But I have assembled a group of individuals in my club who enjoy writing, enjoy talking about things that are going on with us. And if something special happens or somebody gives a speech that I feel like could be related to other people, I'll reach out to that person and say, hey, you know, I really enjoyed that. I think that our visitors might enjoy that. Would you mind writing up 1 or 2 paragraphs about it? I've recorded that speech and I'd like to provide a video of that speech on our website along with your pros. And 9 times out of 10, that person is super excited to share. As it turns out, Toastmasters like to talk. We like to share. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't necessarily be here. So they usually will say yes. So we do have a group of people that help out with the blog content. That's been a big help to me. We collect a lot of our speeches. As I mentioned, we're a specialty interest club. Those speeches are designed to appeal to people who are not Toastmasters. They are on topics like playing a role-playing game or acting, different non-Toastmaster specific topics that I feel that we could bring in more of those type of people into our club with. So I'll record that. I'll post it up to YouTube, put a nice little splash image. In fact, if I scroll down here, I bet you here's an example of one. So this is actually a speech that was given by my good friend, Michael Alexander. You might know Michael Alexander. He's kind of everywhere in the Toastmasters community these days. But I recorded his speech, created this little splash page and embedded it on the homepage along with some pros from him, published it under his name. He actually got credit for having made that blog post. Another thing that we do is we celebrate our DCP progress. Now this DCP widget here on the right side, you'll see it, this bar at the bottom, that indicates that we did reach our goal of 10 for 10 DCP. I am very proud to say that our club is so active. We reached that goal at the very end of January. We were already there. But every time we get a DCP point, we post about it. And we don't just say, hey, we got our 5 members DCP point. We'll say, as of such and such date, we have welcomed so-and-so, 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 and so-and-so to our club. That means that we have earned 1 more point towards our 10 of 10 goal for the year. Another thing that I like to do with our site is to highlight, let's see here, social events. So our club loves to do things together. We actually have a large contingent, despite the fact that we are a worldwide club. We have a couple of contingents around the country, one of whom is in California. So this is a group of our California folks who went out to see a movie together. It was an organized guild event. They took a photo, which I asked them to do because sometimes they'll forget. But they took a photo, they made a post about it. This is a post by our president, and he wrote a little pros here. This is for somebody's birthday. Something like this might seem small, but it shows that we're not just a Toastmasters club, right? We're a group of friends. We enjoy spending time in each other's company outside of the confines of the meeting room, outside of the confines of Zoom. It makes people feel like we're more vibrant, and hopefully it makes them feel like they want to be a part of that community too. Another nice thing that you can do on your site is to link directly to your application right from the home page. If somebody comes to visit your club and they think that they might want to apply, you want to make that as easy as possible for them. So we provide that application link right there, along with a list of the upcoming meetings that we have and a way for them to join our mailing list. We're all right there on the front page. And as I mentioned, this is, despite the fact that this is not one of the hosted websites with Toastmost, it is all brand compliant. Those are just a few of the tips and tricks that I wanted to share with you for ways that you could possibly make your sites more dynamic and fun and engaging for your visitors.
Okay, thank you, Lonnie. And she mentioned, when she was talking about blogging, one of the things I wanted to, I thought I was talking with it with being muted again, because I heard somebody say that. She mentioned blogging, but it doesn't necessarily have to involve a lot of writing. It could be that speech video, or you know, this is a contest replay. So you take that as a starting point, and then if you just copy and paste that URL
code, if you had clear rules, that would happen
Can
much
somebody
better.
turn off their background?
I think more and more to the point.
Carol, can you mute, please?
We know who,
For code,
Carol Dodd. There we go. Thank you.
okay. So if I just paste that link in here, I always think that this is so cool. In a couple of seconds, it comes back, it's inserted the code. And so you take this, you write maybe a couple of hundred words of text to go with it, explaining what it is. And part of the reason you want text is you want to give Google something to index. Well, Google knows a fair amount about YouTube content, so that maybe that probably helps too. But you can customize from that level. Also, one of the things I started including in all these websites is there is a widget down the bottom. This is called the Yoast SEO. This is another plugin to WordPress. And what it does is it's supposed to help you with the search engine optimization of your website. So this is a preview of what somebody would see if they searched and found your website through Google. This is a little preview that they would see in that list of Google links.
Mr.
So you-
Carr,
Yes,
please share your screen.
let's see. It's again.
I am seeing it shared.
Okay. No, it's just it's just Zoom. I needed to pin it so that everybody was going to see that a little bit more clearly.
Quick question, Dave. Why is your screen blurry when we look at it?
Mm-hmm.
So Mr. Carr, are you, or David, are you feeding it through some kind of processor? Because when we saw Lonnie's desktop, the clarity of the fonts were much more clearer.
Well,
Just
I can-
saying.
I can switch
There we go.
to doing it this way. I'll use the regular screen share,
Whatever you just showed was perfect. Yeah.
except
There you
that,
go.
except that I'm keep sharing the wrong thing. Let's see. Okay, now are you
Yep.
seeing the blog post screen?
Perfect.
Okay. In fact, let me.
Could you just share what you did there in order to increase the clarity?
Oh, I just switched to using the regular Zoom screen sharing as opposed to using OBS Studio, which is a fancier way of sharing some content in the background. But the point I was trying to make was about this widget down the bottom allows me to customize the text that somebody would see if they found me through Google or another search engine. I can customize this description down here to say this was a great and it actually wants me to write a little bit more than that. This orange bar here will turn green when I've written about the right amount of copy. So this is helping guide you towards better search engine optimization for your pages and your blog posts. And you don't necessarily have to go crazy with this. You're not trying to, compete with Amazon.com and eke out some tiny increment of additional search traffic. But spending a little bit of time with it will actually help your site. And the other thing that I find very useful is that you can customize the image that is displayed. So if the only thing that's on the page is a video, by default, there won't be any image shown as part of the preview when you share this on social media, but you can add an image. And so we can add in the grumpy dragon here as the image that's going to display along with that post. So this is, remember I showed you how I've promoted some things on Facebook and also on LinkedIn. When I share them there, they will appear the way I want them to appear, as opposed to those social services just going through the website and grabbing the first sentence that it comes across and grabbing the first image that it comes across, which might not be appropriate at all. I want to make sure that what shows up when I share it on social media is what I want to share and what's going to represent this club or district as effectively as possible. So that's the theory there. I probably should go back to just asking for questions that people might want to hear more about.
I have a question. David, for these features, you have to have the administrator status, right? I mean, you can't change the features you just showed us. There's one person that is assigned an administrator at that level.
Well, actually, I would recommend that you make it more than one person because
okay.
You want to delegate that role to a few different, probably club leaders, or maybe somebody who is willing to help and maybe has some knowledge of such things. So you want to have backups, and you want to have continuity when you hand off from one group of club leaders to the next. So that's pretty important that you should have more than one person.
If the club turns over their leadership and we forget, we can't find the password, do we just email your Toastmost?
I guess so, yeah. I mean, a couple of things like that have come up. And of course, I don't want to get sucked into some dispute where people are arguing over who should be in charge of the club or
I just wondered how it was done, because that happens.
But I mean, I definitely would encourage you to deal with that yourself. And let me quickly show, because I went through that setup wizard, but sort of after you've done that, there are things that you might want to change from time to time. And so we can go down to settings, Toastmasters, and there is also a group of settings for RSVP Maker, which are related to specifically the calendar functions. But the Toastmasters one is where we ask you to set your club officers. So here we're picking from the list of people who have accounts on the system and assigning them to different roles. And these also get used as email forwarders. So for the club that's demo.toastmost.org, demo-president@toastmost.org would forward that message to the president. And if I want to make somebody else in here an administrator, or I have another role I call manager, which is sort of a step below the administrator, but they can add user accounts, for example. So I would suggest that you have at least one other administrator, maybe a couple of managers. The built-in WordPress roles are things like editor and author. So you might also want to have somebody who maybe doesn't want to have anything to do with sort of the more administrative details of the club, but they're somebody who is a good writer and editor, and you want to make them be in charge of editing the homepage and editing any blog posts that come in. You could give them that editor role. So if we go into the users section, we can check off anybody here and say change role to.
Okay, that's good. Thank you so much. That's very helpful. Thanks for the illustration. Yeah.
The other question I get a lot is what about when people leave the club? You can go ahead and remove them. And even if they come back, there's a list of former members where you can reactivate their accounts. So keep that in mind too. Don't be afraid to take people off the list, because it gets confusing when you're going into set up an agenda if half the people who show up on the list as being able to be assigned to roles are actually former members. We don't really want that. And I think there was something that maybe I didn't necessarily show along the way that I think is pretty useful, is when I'm trying to assign somebody to a role, right in the drop-down list, it tells me when they last did that role. So if you're trying to assign people to do something that they haven't done for a while, or maybe you're on the phone to them and trying to encourage them, I really need a Toastmaster of the day and you haven't done it for 6 months, get on the stick. That may help you. That also shows up in this suggest mode, where instead of just assigning the person, I'm going to say, I'm not nominating you for a role. You haven't done this. And this is an email that goes out. I say send suggestion. They will get a message saying, I'm nominating you for a role, and they can click here to take that role. Again, it's a one-click. You don't have to enter your password necessarily to sign up for a role. And if somebody else has taken that role in the meantime, it will suggest to them that there are other open roles that they can sign up for. So, again, I was a VP of education when I got started on this. I wasn't a VP of PR. I was looking for ways to publicize my club, but I was also looking for ways to save myself time. And that's what I've tried to spread the wealth to other people who hopefully can find these things useful as well. And one other thing I should show quickly, I think I've mentioned it before, is the just a guide through the video course. I may still add some more modules to this. And by the way, documentation is one of the things I could most use help with. See, am I sharing the right screen? Are you seeing the video course? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. So there's an introduction. That's basically the song and dance I gave at the beginning of this program about why it is worthwhile. And there's a walkthrough of how to set it up, how to edit your homepage and the first blog post. You just saw some of that, but you might need a refresher. And then how to go through organizing the agenda, understanding the system of email forwarders and some other settings that are sort of in the background that you might want to tweak or get right. How to add a page and change the menu at the top of your site, which starts getting into some of the design changes that you can make. You can also, in many of these themes, you can change the colors. You can even make basic changes to the layout, particularly if you have the 2023 edition of the WordPress theme. And then some tips on search engine optimization. And I was thinking I would add something about the email system. So I just did a blog post the other day about how you can build a newsletter out of a series of different events that are upcoming and specific blog posts. So part of the idea there is the blog can be kind of the living document where you keep putting out news items, putting out different ways that you're celebrating your club and its members. And then maybe you gather those together on some periodic basis and put out an email newsletter. But you don't have to build it from scratch. You can and you don't have to, when you assemble a bunch of blog posts into a newsletter, you don't necessarily pull in the whole blog post. You pull in the first part, and then there's a little teaser to read more. So I do have a blog up on the WordPress for Toastmasters website that goes through that. So I maybe have a little bit of a branding problem because I have two websites. I have Toastmost and I have WordPress for Toastmasters. So WordPress for Toastmasters is the site that's really more the documentation and training materials. And it does also talk more about the open source version of the software, which is what Lonnie uses. So it presents those as two alternatives, two ways that you can build one of these sites. For most people, if you don't have a bunch of web development experience. It's going to be a lot simpler to go with the Toastmost option, and it will also be less expensive, most likely, unless you have like a friendly university or company that's going to give you space on their server. Sylvia.
Yes, thanks, David. I have a hard time sometimes convincing the club members that the website is an important driver for guests and potential members. Therefore, for them to commit time to it. What are your answers to that question?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I do find that frustrating that people think that websites are old hat or something. I don't know. I don't really understand what they think. But to me, and this isn't, I think it's particularly a big deal if you're running an online or hybrid club and you want to be advertising yourself to the world. But even if it's a brick and mortar club, think about the last time you bought a car. Did you research the car online before you bought the car? You probably read
that's what I will tell
bunch of
them.
articles about it.
The search engines.
So everybody is going to check you out online before they come in the door, whether it's in the physical meeting room door or whether it's into the Zoom room. They're going to check you out. And we do regularly get members come to Club Awesome who said, gee, I looked at a couple of websites and wow, this club has a lot going on. That's kind of the impression that I want them to have. I want them to scan down that homepage and not just see a picture of people holding certificates, but here's a bunch of workshops we've held. Look at this club. We're in South Florida, so emphasizing that we are friendly to people for whom English is not their first language. So we have a workshop that talks about embracing your accent from a former club president who's actually a professional translator. So I really think finding ways to distinguish your club, and this new era of online and hybrid is cute because you can invite people from anywhere, but it also means you get to compete with the entire rest of the world.
That's true.
You got to make an impression. I'm sorry, Larry, you have a
Thank you, David.
Yes, David, what I was just going to say is my club, local club, is using EasySpeak. And what I've told them all about your website and what it can do and everything like that. And so I told them what I would do is I would run it in parallel with EasySpeak and show them different things as we go along and sort of like inch them over into yours. See?
EasySpeak does have some very diehard fans, particularly in the UK and Europe. It's kind of hard to wean people away from that. I mean, I think a lot of clubs had an EasySpeak site, and then they also had a free Toastmost site to be more the marketing front end, as we've discussed the real limitations on what it can do for marketing. I mean, I kind of see it as a waste to have wind up having two websites if you can get it all in one package. That's what I'm aiming for.
Yep.
But EasySpeak sites are ugly.
Yep.
Just not to put too fine a point on it. I mean, the guy, and again, wonderful volunteer, great person, I'm sure, but I believe he's an accountant, and I think of it as being sort of as friendly as an ERP system. Functional, and a lot of people really like the way, and some of the things like the suggest feature that I have were sort of inspired by things that I heard about in EasySpeak. I mean, I've never actively used EasySpeak, so I can't really. But I also have the impression that EasySpeak is sort of more of a command and control kind of setup.
Yeah,
where,
just basically keeps track of everything. That's the only thing we use it for. We don't use it as a face to the internet. We had another website to do that.
Right.
And
So,
That's,
what can I tell you? I mean, people have different tastes. I'm doing the best I can to make it as useful as I can, and
Yep, you are.
glad you're willing to put in a good word for it.
Yep. I got to go to my meeting in 15
Okay.
minutes.
All right.
So
All right.
thanks, David.
And is it Mr. Ferrer?
Yes, Chicky, and you've done
Chicky.
some stuff out here in District 49 out in Hawaii. And I just was wondering I'm trying to build a club in District 112, which is in New Zealand. And and what I'm doing as the club president, new club president, effective July 1st, is I'm trying to bring people to New Zealand to talk about the nuggets of information that they have to enhance those clubs in that area. And I was just wondering if you would be willing to be a keynote sometime in the future. And Lonnie, if you too could be a keynote sometime in the future. So the format that I'm doing and trying to convince the club officers is to do a 5 to 10-minute presentation to open and to attract people to see what's different in the world. And then from there, invite members to look at how we can improve our processes as far as hybrids, meetings, and things of that nature. So putting out a request to the both of you, if you consider doing something like that. Right now I'm in Hawaii, and if it is, right now it's 4:15 p.m., but in New Zealand, it is one day ahead and it is 2 hours behind. So it would be 2:15 p.m. New Zealand, and it would be Friday. So if the both of you be willing to, I sent my email in there, and I'd like to see if it's possible for you to present at a future date. And it's every other.
I'm looking for
every
those
other Monday.
opportunities. I mean, this whole setup I've been talking about is a pretty well kept secret, and I'm trying to get enough people to take advantage of it, and enough people to chip in some bucks that it's self-supporting. But no, I am looking for opportunities to speak to other districts, and I'd appreciate anything any of you can do to help spread the word about the fact that this alternative exists, and that people should at least take a look at it. But yes, I would be available. You kind of let me know when, and we'll work it out. So yeah, I've learned more about time zones than I ever wanted to know since dealing with online and hybrid stuff. But the RSVP, I mean, actually, one of the things that I'm proud of, if you look at, you might have seen it when you went to register for this event. It does show time zone conversion based on it tries to detect based on your browser, what your browser tells it where your current time zone is. And if it doesn't match the time zone of the event, it shows you a conversion. And you can also click to manually set that if you're trying to figure it out for some other region. So I tried to think of a lot of these things. I think we're going to wrap it up there. So I'm going to stop the recording. And thank you all very much for being part of this. I really appreciate your help and hopefully your support. And please reach out to me with any further questions. You will get a recording and a list of other resources after this event.